You know, it's really fun to do cute little intros and share anecdotes and stories and stuff about my childhood. This one I don't think needs that because the episode this time is the story. It's time to talk about how Persia went from pretty much nothing to being the granddaddy of all the empires in the ancient world. And this happened over like 100 years. They came out of nowhere. And I think one way to look at it, and this is kind of the way I'm going to tell the story, we'll see if you're persuaded by it or not. I think one way to look at it is that all the big competitors for who would wear the crown of most important empire next just beat each other up so much between the late 600s and the mid 500s that it allowed little small Persia to bounce to the front of the line and take advantage of a power vacuum to become the big dogs, to become the most powerful empire in the world when nobody ever would have guessed that 100 years earlier. I'll do my best to tell you the story and we'll see what you think. If you've been with me through the Bible stuff, you know Assyria was a really big deal and they were really mean and nobody liked them. And you know what? They got lucky. I mean, to some level, you got to give them credit for being terrifying yet awesome. But on the other hand, when you're doing a monarchy or an empire, you don't really have control over who the next king is going to be. You just get who you get. And all of these great empires in history that have like a 100-year run or a 200-year run or whatever, and it goes really well, they all seem to have had multiple great kings in a row just out of dumb luck fall into their laps. And that is definitely the case with Assyria. I say this with resentment, and so would everybody in the ancient world, but their kings, though morally horrible, were really good at what they did. They understood what Assyria was. They understood Assyria's reputation. They understood when it was time to be aggressive. They understood when you might need to back off. They were great warriors and they were great administrators. And this struck terror into the heart of all the other little kingdoms around them. But in 631, their last great, hyper-competent, you lucked out by getting that guy king, dies. This is a fellow named Ashurbanipal. And once he's gone, they got a problem with leadership from here on out. That makes them vulnerable. Now a bunch of the other kingdoms that are significant but couldn't match might or force or intimidation with Assyria, now they start licking their chops a little bit and they're like, maybe we could handle them. And so as we move toward the 620s and, how do you say it, 16s, the 610s, we see a thing where the Medes, this longtime cousin and ally of the less well-known Persians at this time, under the leadership of a king named Cyaxares, they go and gather a whole bunch of people under their banner. And they're like, we're going to do something about Assyria. They put together a big enough coalition that the king of the Babylonians, which is a very big deal people group, a king named Nabopolassar, he takes notice of what the Medes have accomplished. And he's like, all right, yeah, we could pair up. And they do. And working in a coordinated invasion, they push Assyria back out of their historic territory. And eventually, together, they sack the very significant city of Ashur. And at this point, they're like, we Babylonians and Medians, we need to make this official long term. So Cyaxares, king of the Medes, and Nabopolassar, king of the Babylonians, have their kids get married. The Median princess is named Amytis, and the Babylonian prince is the super, super famous Nebuchadnezzar II, the one who in 586 axes the Judean temple and ends the southern kingdom of Judah. So now with this union in place, because of this power couple, this coalition can set their sights on the untouchable, great Assyrian city of Nineveh. This is the one that Jonah went and prophesied against, and then everybody repented for a little while, so God didn't destroy it. This is the one who the minor prophet Nahum in the Old Testament prophesies all kinds of ruin about, and indeed it happens. This is the stuff that Nahum is talking about. Well, after the Medes and Babylonians take more ground yet from the Assyrians and really have the Assyrians on the rope, Egypt is like, we got to get involved. We like Assyria there as a buffer kingdom between us and Babylon and the Medes. We don't want them to get too powerful right now. So they try to move up from Egypt, which would take them through Judah, right past Jerusalem. And the Judeans under the king Josiah are like, no, we're not going to do that. And so they put up a really good fight. Ultimately, Josiah is killed as he fights against the Pharaoh's armies who were on their way to help out the Assyrians. But Josiah delays the Egyptians enough that the Babylonians and the Medians are able to win again over the Assyrians, and now there is very little left of Assyria by the time the Egyptian army gets up north. Now stuff is getting absolutely crazy. This time in history and this war that's going on here, this maybe should be called World War I, and we should call World War I World War II, and we should call World War II World War III, because everybody is in the game here, and they're all descending on that Mesopotamian river valley of the Tigris and the Euphrates. Assyria is there, what's left of it. Egypt is there, which is massive. The Median coalition is there, and the monstrous Babylonians are there. What's going to happen? The fate of the ancient world is going to be decided right here as we come up on 600 BC, and you would think that one of those four is going to end up sitting atop a mountain of corpses and ruling the world for the next several hundred years. But it doesn't really play out like that. They meet at the city of Carchemish, and there the Battle of Carchemish occurs. The Medes and the Babylonians win decisively, and Assyria is done. They're gone, an empire no more, and Egypt is severely weakened and has to limp back to Egypt, and they lose all of their holdings outside of Africa. Right after that battle, Nebuchadnezzar's dad, Nabopolassar, dies. Now Nebuchadnezzar is king, and it seems like it's just going to be downhill from there. Like he's just going to mop everything up and that'll be that. But it doesn't really go that way. For whatever reason, things stall out and people even start to question Nebuchadnezzar's leadership. But it's then in the 580s, about 20 years into his reign, that he finally puts together a very successful campaign. And he needed some wins at this point. He needed to refill the coffers. He needed an influx of gold. He needed to reassert himself as this great king who's trying to become the mega king, the mega emperor king of the world. And unfortunately, if you're a fan of the kingdom of Judah, the win that he gets is over Jerusalem. And it is a crushing, resounding victory that he collects in this situation. All of the gold and all of the wealth of the Jewish temple and all of the wealth of the royal treasury of Jerusalem all goes back to Babylon. Additionally, on campaigns right around that time, Nebuchadnezzar crushes some key Egyptian allies and really secures Babylon as being the most powerful kingdom in the ancient world for the next 50 years. But after the 580s BC, everybody's beat up and everybody's tired, and there's some confusion amongst the Medes as to what it looks like to move forward with Babylon as an ally, but nowhere to really expand or go. And Persia is still waiting in the wings this whole time. And next time around, we're going to talk about how the Persians seized on this opportunity under the leadership of Cyrus II, Cyrus the Great, and changed the entire flow of history with their victory over Babylon. Did that sound impressive enough? I wanted it to sound impressive and all exciting. I hope it worked. More tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour Podcast. Let's do this again soon.
This podcast exists because many of you kick in to make it happen, even though you don't have to. Learn more at thetmbh.com/support.